Hi friends, it's Jessie here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. For today's video, we are going to be talking about all of the books I read in February. I posted a video like this back in January. I really enjoyed filming it. If you watched that video, you know that I read a ton of books in January. I was like gung-ho back into reading. I haven't been a huge reader in the past several years, just with time. I haven't had as much time as I would like to devote to it, but I made it one of my goals for 2024 to get back into reading, and I went strong in January. I read 9 books. You can go back and watch that video if you're interested in seeing what the books were, what I thought of them. In February, I didn't read quite as much. For one, February is just a shorter month. And in February, I got really sick. And you would think that being sick in bed, I would read a ton, but I just had such a hard time like focusing on reading when I was sick, so I couldn't really read physically, and then anytime I tried to turn on like an audiobook, I would just fall asleep. So there was a couple of weeks in there where I wasn't really reading at all. The rest of the month it was really just like 20 minutes a day at night, so I didn't get through nearly as many books in February. Plus I was working on The Stand from Stephen King. So in 2024, one of my like little reading challenges I set for myself was to read as many Stephen King books as I could get through. I'm a big fan of Stephen King's writing and a big fan of horror, and that was just like a little personal challenge that I set myself. I wanted to get through as many Stephen King books in like publication order as I could, and in January I went through I think 5 of King's novels, and I was all the way up to The Stand, which is something that I was super excited to read, and still am, because I did not finish it in February. For one, that's a massive like 1,200 plus page book. For two, it is very difficult to read about an apocalyptic super flu when you're sick. You know, I'm sitting here reading about these people like coughing and trying to catch their breath, and also coughing and trying to catch my breath, and it was just too much for me, so I had to put it down. I read some other things instead, but I did not get through any Stephen King novels in February, which is kind of sad. I was really hoping to keep on my Stephen King train, but hopefully I am back into reading The Stand now as I'm filming this in early March, so hopefully I'll be able to get through it in March, and I'll be able to talk to you about it next month. For now, let's talk about the books I actually got through. I read 3 books in February, so significantly fewer than in January, and one of them was so short. It was just a really teeny tiny novella. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go ahead and talk about the first book I read in February. And I'm going to pull up my Goodreads, because even though February was not that long ago, I can't remember which book I read first. If you would like to follow me on Goodreads and follow along, I always update my Goodreads with the books I finished as well as their ratings. So if you don't want to wait for these monthly videos to see what I'm reading and what I enjoyed, follow me on Goodreads. I'm just Jwhackers over there, just like my channel name. If I remember, I'll try to link it down below, but I'm just going to go to my profile here and see. Okay, so the first book that I read in February is by Dana K. White, and it's Organizing for the Rest of Us. 100 realistic strategies to keep any house under control. I read Decluttering at the Speed of Life by Dana K. White a couple of years ago. Really enjoyed it. I had seen somebody on social media talking about Dana K. White's new book, and I was like, oh, she wrote another one. Well, I went in and I looked, and this book I think was released in like 2020 2 or something. I could be lying to you. It wasn't super new in terms of release date, but I hadn't read it yet. So I went ahead and read it, and I gotta say, it wasn't my favorite. And I think it's because I had already read Decluttering at the Speed of Life, and it's really repetitive. Like, if this had been my first Dana K. White book, I think I would have really enjoyed it and probably given it 5 stars. But because I read that decluttering book previously, it's a lot of the same concepts, a lot of the same comparisons and thoughts. There was some new stuff in here as well, but I just didn't get as much out of it as I did Decluttering at the Speed of Life. So if I were to recommend just one Dana K. White book, it would be that one. She also has a YouTube channel, I believe, where she does a lot of like tips and things. I think she's got a podcast probably. I know she's got a blog. Like, she's very much out there in the internet space, right? So if you're looking for tips for decluttering or cleaning or organizing, her blog is called A Slob Comes Clean. She was very much like messy and disorganized, and she kind of turned it around for herself, and she shares her tips in her books. I really like her writing style. I really like the things that she has to say. I feel like she reuses concepts in her various books, which makes sense because if you haven't read the other one, it's good information to have. But for me, this book was a 3-star. I think I rated Decluttering at the Speed of Life 5 stars. So like I said, if I had read this book first, this one probably would have been the 5-star. I think it's good information. It was just kind of repetitive for me, having read her other book. So that was my first book that I read in February. The next book is the novella. I was watching Kayla from Books and Lala, who's one of my all-time favorite YouTubers. I love her concepts for reading vlogs. She's always so creative with how she chooses what she's going to read. And I've gotten many book recommendations from her. Not me personally, but just like watching her videos. And this one was no exception. I cannot remember which of her videos I was watching, but she read The 6 Deaths of the Saint by Alex E. Harrow. I think she gave it 4 or 5 stars. What drew me to this book specifically was she said it was super short. It's like 60 pages long. And by the time I got around to reading this, it was already halfway through the month. I had only finished 1 book, and I was like, 20 chapters into The Stand, which that book has like 200 chapters or something. So like, I was not making progress on The Stand. It was very clear to me that I was not going to have as many books finished in the month as I had hoped. And I wanted not only to continue with my like reading streak, but I also wanted to have books to talk to you guys about in this video. So I was like, I need to finish some more books. So I chose The 6 Deaths of the Saint, Alex E. Harrow. I can't really tell you guys anything about it because it's so short. I would be giving away like the whole plot, but it was incredible. It was 5 stars for me. By the time you're kind of thrown right into it and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and by the time I kind of figured out what was going on in the book, I was like, yes, this is so good. The writing style is incredible. I can't really say much else, like I said, because I'll spoil the whole book. There's literally, it's 60 pages or something. It's a super quick read. I read it in 1 sitting, and it was the best thing I read in February by far. Really, really enjoyed it. And apparently Goodreads is saying it's a series of books. It's Into the Shadow number 3. It's very much a standalone book though. You don't have to read the other ones in the series. And it says it's an Amazon original story. So cool. Highly recommend it. I found it, I believe, on Kindle Unlimited. Could be wrong about that. I don't ever buy my books. Well, not never, but I typically don't buy books. I either read them through Kindle Unlimited, which I absolutely love. There's a zillion books available to read through that subscription, or I look it up on Libby or Hoopla, which I've connected with my library card. There's tons of ways to read books for free or for a very small cost. You don't have to buy physical books or even like Kindle books for, you know, $12, $20, $30. Definitely check out those things that I mentioned if you want to get into reading and you're worried about the cost. Yeah, I've absolutely loved my Kindle Unlimited subscription. Hoopla, typically if you can find something on Hoopla, it's usually available like right then and there. For Libby, it's just like a regular library. So a lot of times I have to put stuff on hold and wait for it, especially if it's super, super popular. But I've read quite a few books through Libby, really enjoyed it. Okay, and then the last book that I read in February, again, I was looking for short books because I wanted to be able to, you know, read something real quick. I was still working on the stand, still chugging along. Actually, I think by the time I read this next book, I was like pausing the stand because it was just too much. I was struggling mentally with being sick and reading about all these people dying. So I read Tessa Bailey, Same Time Next Year. And oh boy, did I not know what I was getting into with this book. I think I literally went into Kindle Unlimited and just typed in novella and picked a book with higher ratings. This book was straight smut. And I did not know that going into it. Not that I have a problem with that. It was just like, oh, I did not realize that's what I was getting myself into. I thought it was just like a romance. It was very light, very predictable. It's like one of these fake marriage or fake romance type books. If you're into romance, you'll know what I mean, that trope. The characters were fine. The plot was fine. I wouldn't say it was the best book that I've ever read, but I did enjoy it. Very, very smutty though. Like if you don't like that sort of thing, or you tend to get embarrassed or like blush when you're reading super graphic stuff, this is definitely going to make you uncomfortable if you're not into that sort of thing. But if you like that kind of story, I guess I recommend this one. I rated it 3 stars. Like I said, it wasn't the best book I ever read by any stretch of the imagination, but it was fun. I got through it really quickly because it's pretty short, and yeah, there's not really much else to say about it. It's just a smutty, smutty book. If you like your spicy romance novels, this one might be for you. All right, so that's it. Those are the books I read in February. Very short and sweet. I was still working on my daily readers in February, the poetry book and the Daily Stoic that I was reading in January. I didn't pick that one up as frequently, so I've definitely missed some days. At first, when I was reading that in January, if I got a day or two behind, I would go back and kind of catch myself up. But at this point, if I miss a day, I just skip it. I will likely read these books again next year, so I'm sure that next year I will hit some of the entries that I missed, you know. And it'll almost be like a whole new reading experience next year, hopefully. So I've just been, you know, picking it up when I have the time, and then when I think about it, reading that day's entry. If you're not familiar with the books I'm talking about, I'll put them up on the screen. They are sort of like a daily devotional type thing where you read one entry a day. They have a little date at the top, but they're not religious. So I've really been enjoying them when I've picked them up. It has not been a daily thing. Like I said, February, I was sick and kind of all over the place and not really great about keeping up with my routines. But when I did pick it up, I did enjoy it, especially the poetry. I'm such a sucker for poetry. So that's it, friends. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have book recommendations for me, please leave them in the comment section below, especially if it's something that I can find on Kindle Unlimited. Like I said, I've been loving that subscription. Hopefully March will be a better reading month. I'll have more to talk to you guys about next month. I do plan on doing this video every single month of 2024. Fingers crossed I get to them. So if you like this kind of content, make sure that you click the subscribe button so that you can come back next time, and I will see you then.